Yeah, you have to subscribe or you won't go to heaven. I'm dead serious. No, I'm joking. I'm making fun of people who are so quick to say somebody's not saved, whatever that's supposed to mean. You didn't say the proposition right. You didn't say the word. You didn't raise your hand when the proposition was put forth from the pulpit when no one was looking. You didn't say, I believe that. Now let me get back to my sinning. So you're not saved because you didn't do that thing at my church that says just believe your trash, say the words, and go about your business. If anybody disagrees, they're going to hell to burn forever. Yuck, yuck. That's Christianity. Yuck. That's a joke. I hope that idea is ridiculed until it's pulverized into the ground and nobody with any sense would even consider believing it because it's not real. It's fake. It's not Christianity at all. The purpose of Christianity is for God to put his spirit in you, to put his law in the temple, and to conform you to the image of the Son by a close relationship and connection with Christ, who is our example. Claiming you agree with a propositional statement and then condemning everybody that God's going to burn them forever is a joke, a pathetic, false idea. And it should be ridiculed until people refuse to believe it anymore because it's stunning their growth and it's not true. That being said, consider this. I'm sorry to confront you if that bothers you, but that's what I believe. So, and I'm dedicated to my last dying breath to demonstrate it for the sake of love. So I'm going to revisit this, although people have cautioned me against it, because I don't think it's been answered well. Jesus is God. Jesus died. God can't die. Now, most people will say, oh, but you define death differently than me. And okay, if death just means your body dies, then no one really dies. And the snake was right, first off. But then you can redefine what the snake meant. So here's my question for you. If God can't die, but Jesus is God and Jesus died and he is God and God can't die. If you think all those are true, which is impossible by your own definitions, it's impossible. It's inconsistent. It's not self-consistent. You define death. And what do you mean by God can't die? What do you mean God can't die? If you mean God can't die like I do because you believe, because you're holding my definition of death when you say God can't die, then you don't mean the same thing by death as you do when you say Jesus died. Whatever you mean by death, if it's some other definition, why aren't you holding that definition and saying, yes, of course Jesus suffered that death? That's what death means. Your own consistent beliefs shouldn't have problems with believing God can't die, or that God can indeed die based on your definition of death, because you believe Jesus is God and Jesus died. So when people say God can't die, and so all three of these are true, it just demonstrates that they themselves don't understand what death means, and they're confused about it because they mean death like I do normally when they say God can't die. It's silly. Whatever your definition of death is, you should say God can't die is false because Jesus is God and Jesus died. Define death however you want to. And when you do that, why do you have a problem with God can't die? Of course he can, unless you're confused and you really know what death means. So, no, you can't hold all three and be honest. It's impossible. You define death how you define death because you believe Jesus died. And so why do you have a problem with saying God? Why would you want to say God can't die? Of course he can. Because that's what the Bible teaches. Jesus is God and he died. I would like to submit the idea that by the fact that you're confused about wanting to say all three are true, demonstrates you don't understand what you're even saying within your own system. Most people stutter with this because they're confused about death. That's why. But even on your own understanding of death, the standard Christian definition of death, that most Christians believe that the spirit's immortal, even though the Bible says that's not the case. With your own internal consistency, you should have no problem saying God died. But because you do have a problem with it, it should be a sign that you don't understand what you're talking about. So, walk in the Spirit or you're not saved.